Team dynamics, the team analysis framework. The importance of teams in a team environment, in a project environment, can hardly be overemphasized. Projects are delivered through people who mostly work in teams. It is seldom that a project has only one person. Most of the time it's delivered by a few people or a team or multiple teams who then work on various parts of the project, and that is how projects are delivered. And although many project failures can be contributed to technical problems, it is estimated that about half of projects fail to the human factors. And the human factors can vary greatly, from decision making to internal conflict, just to a lack of motivation and commitment. So there can be various reasons from the human perspective why a project fails, or when they do not meet the deadlines or other requirements. It is therefore critical that the project manager is also well equipped to manage the team. A simple definition of a manager is someone who gets the job done through other people. And if we look at it from that perspective, the project manager is in some way not managing only the project, but he is mainly managing the people who are then doing the job, who they are delivering or implementing the project. Now the question, and a very important question, is how can you improve the team and the team functioning if it is really the team that delivers the project? The team analysis framework provides us with a model that we can utilize to look at the team and then to improve the team operations and performance. The purpose of the framework is to make the understanding of the complexity of a team easier. Now, if I can explain this point briefly of how this a framework works to understand complexity, let's make a simple example. So if you drive in the rural area and suddenly your car cuts out, it's completely dead. If you have no framework or frame of reference to look at the car, you can only phone for assistance or for help. If you have some knowledge of cars, or some frame of reference, then you can start asking questions that may give you answers, and then you can respond to that. You can fix the car. For example, you can check the fuel system, and if that is in order, you can move on to the electrical system, and if that is nothing wrong with that, you can go move on to the mechanical system. But you can only do that if you have a framework that you can apply then to ask these questions. Now that is the same what we're going to do with teams. The framework does not tell you exactly how a team works, but it helps you to ask good questions, and based on the answers of those questions you can then move to the next step, and that is to improve on the team. Let us first start with a simple definition of a team. A team is an open system with an organized set of interrelated and interacting parts that attempts to maintain its own balance amid the influences of its surrounding environment. Now, this definition by Tubbs is a systemic definition, and why we are using it is that it emphasizes that a team is a whole. And then within that team, there are interrelated and interacting parts that work together to create this whole in an environment or in a surroundings. Now, in order to create a framework that we can apply to the team, we're going to use a mental picture by looking at this tetrahedron or the tetrahedral molecular geometry and apply that and to create our framework. So this is really a picture that I would like you to create in your minds and hold on, and then we will use that to look at the different components of a team. Now, first, if you look at the structure, you will see that in the middle there's the core. Now, the core is atom is the most important of the structure, and attached to this core are 4 atoms. 1, 2, 3, 4 atoms. And the interesting thing about these atoms is that they are all equal distance from the core. The degrees are all exactly the same, and therefore the distance from this one to that one to that one, from any one to any to the next, is exactly the same. So then if we apply this to our team, it means then that there's certain part of the team that is more important, and that is this the core in the middle, and then there are other components of the team that are equally important, but we cannot really say that the one is more important than the other. So here we have a description of the structure. The structure consists of the core atom, then the 4 atoms attached to it at equal distance, each atom at equal degrees, and equal degrees from each other. Now, if we apply this one to the team, this is of course a 2-dimensional. We can say that in the middle we have the core, and then the rest of the team in the components around the core. Here we have then the framework with the name of each component. In the middle is the core, and then we have the structure here, we have patterns, we have performance, we have culture, and then the context. So there are 6 components of the framework that we're going to apply to the team. So it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and if we add the context to that, it is 6 components in total. Here we have the components with a short description or just some points that we can use to describe the components, and in the slides that follow we will go into a little bit more depth on each one of these components of the team analysis framework. The first and most important part of the framework is the core, and in the core we have 3 elements. It's the purpose, leadership, and values. And so the purpose is really the reason for the existence of the team, and we're applying this framework now to the team. So the purpose is the reason for the existence of the team, and per definition a project has a beginning and as an end, and as the project comes to an end, then the team also doesn't exist anymore, because the team is there for purposes of the project. Now, the purpose can be clear, or sometimes it's not clear. In business or organizational terms, if there's not a clarity on exactly what needs to be done and how it needs to be done, there is going to be a problem. Then we look at the second element in the core. It is the leadership. Now, this is the function of leadership. The leader itself is also part of the structure here on the left. But here in the middle, we talk about the leadership as the function of the leadership. Now, we all know that the program manager or the project leader, project manager, has the biggest impact on the project. It is in most organizations, or we can say maybe all organizations, the leader is the single individual who has the biggest impact on the rest. And the question is here how well the leadership function is fulfilled, whether there is good direction, whether there is good management of the team and all the other aspects of leadership, how well that is fulfilled. And the third component in the core then are the values. Now, values underlies or precedes behavior. If we look at values, it is really that invisible aspect in relationships and between people that often holds them together, or on the other side, which would drive them apart. So if there's an overlap of values, there's a good chance that people will work well together, or that they will be able to find a way of working together. Now, in a project team, to have common values of how the relationships work and how they go about doing their work would then be reflected in the values of that particular team. And teams can have unique values, but of course they must be aligned to the bigger organizational values. The second component that we're going to look at is the structure. If you ask the question, what is the team made up of, you would be describing the structure. Now, the structure are mostly the people. And the people, you can describe the demographics, where do the people come from, what are the ages, the genders, the languages, and so on, their qualifications and their experience. That will all be part of the demographical description of the team. What are the formal roles in the team? So that is the organizational roles, and in this case, within the project team, what do you call the different team members? And then the hierarchy of the specific team within the organization, where do they work? So that would be all different aspects of the team structure. The next component that we are going to look at is pattern. Now, we must remember that when we talk about structure, pattern, performance, and culture, there's not necessarily order that is preferable, because these are, more or less equal. That is the picture that you wanted to create with that tetrahedral structure. But if we look at the patterns have a sequence, a direction, frequency, and a style and a mode. For example, if it's a stripe pattern, then the stripes must repeat. Or if it is a check pattern, then blocks must repeat with stripes. Then it becomes a pattern. Now, in a team, patterns develop after a period of time. They are not necessarily there in the beginning. It's only after time that the patterns develop. Now, the patterns can be in communication. So it is people and the team members speak to each other in a usual way, or it becomes recognizable in, they always speak to each other in this way, therefore it's a pattern. There could be decision-making patterns. It can either be one person makes the decisions and the rest of them just falls in, or it could be group participation, and they regularly or most of the time they make decisions in that way, therefore it becomes a pattern. There are also other patterns. For example, the meetings. How often do they have meetings? What kind of meetings? Is it stand-up meetings? Is it just meetings, once weekly meetings? But if it repeats at regular intervals, then we say, okay, this is part of the pattern of the team. The next component is culture. Now, culture is a broad umbrella term with many things incorporated under the term of organizational or team culture. Now, if you ask the question, how do you do things around there, or how do you do things in your team? When you describe or answer that question, you would probably be describing the culture. You would say we are, it's pretty relaxed in our team, or the most of the time it's tense and people bark at each other, or they talk to each other in a certain way, and then you would be describing the culture. A culture has mood, so we would use emotional and mood words and climate words. So we would say a culture is cold, or it's friendly, or it's warm. their cultures also have informal roles. So certain members would be the, like the joker or the fun guy to be with, or he's the serious one or the prankster or whatever. So that would be part of the culture of that particular team. Then a norm is something when behavior becomes acceptable. So it becomes acceptable for people to come late or early, and then it would be a norm. So, and that would, over a period of time, teams and organizations, they build and develop a certain culture. And a culture, although it is very soft and woolly, it often has a very big impact on the team. So within a culture, one behaves in a certain way, or a culture encourages you to behave in a certain way. So if you have a warm and friendly culture, you would probably make people feel welcome, or when you enter into that team, you would feel welcome to that team. But if it's a hostile culture, or then you would have great difficulty to maybe to feel part of that team, because the other people don't make it easy for you. Culture can also have a big impact on the rest of the team, and specifically the performance, which is our next component. When we look at the performance of the team, we can divide it into the internal performance and the output performance. Now, the internal performance is how the team members behave towards each other. And then the output performance is what do they produce. Now, for good performance, you need both to be positive. So you need a well-functioning team internally, and of course, they also have to produce the necessary outputs on time and quality and according to the other measurements. Note also that decisions are usually part of the output performance. So if you look from a performance perspective, you cannot have a good team that makes bad decisions, or vice versa, you cannot have a bad team that makes good decisions. So normally good teams make good decisions. So decisions can be regarded as an output of a team. The last component of the framework is the context. Now that is the surroundings or environment that the team is functioning in. You will also see, and it is well described in the text file that you have, that you get the immediate context, which is the environment that the team is working in. Then you would get the bigger environment, or the intermediate, that is any team. All teams are part of an organization, so they're part of a bit of a bigger structure. And then the organization functions in a context or a social political environment, and in our current situation we are very aware of that, how the social political and then other factors in the bigger context and environment impact on all levels until it filters down to the smallest part. Even on the team level, we are being influenced what happens in the bigger context and or bigger environment. Now, in your assignment, you are going to apply the team analysis framework. First of all, you're going to apply the framework to a work team. So you will select a work team, and this is you do have the instructions for the assignment. You will use the framework to analyze the team. It's called the team analysis framework, where you would first describe the team according to each component of the framework, and then based on your analysis you would make certain recommendations on how you would improve on the team functioning.